Hello, I'm Tom Gilson, Associate Editor of Against the Grain, and I'm here at the Charleston Conference in the Francis Marion Hotel in the Penthouse Suites, and I'm joined by Albert Joy, who is the Acquisitions and Preservation Librarian at the University of Vermont, and we're here to talk to Kari Paulson, who is the Vice President and General Manager of ebooks at ProQuest. Kari, welcome to the Penthouse.
Thanks, Tom.
It's a delight to have you with us.
Great to be here.
I want to start off, in January of 2013, you started the year off with a bang.
Right.
Your company, EBL, was acquired by ProQuest, and we were wondering, how did the deal come about, and what role did you play in the negotiation?
Right. So the deal came about really, it started as a conversation along the way. Kevin Sayre, who you may know, was one of the founders of eBury, and eBury had previously been acquired by ProQuest. And for many years, we'd been talking to each other about how we might collaborate, how we might bring our services together in one way or another. And there was never really the right opportunity to do so. Over the course of the last year, we just started throwing some ideas around. And I think that those ideas grew to the point that ProQuest and eBury felt that it would be the best thing for their patrons, the best thing for the service, the best thing for the companies if we could join forces, bring our teams together, bring our services and products together, and merge into a single entity.
And your role in the negotiations?
My role, I wasn't involved in any of the business transaction decisions. That was left to our board and to our managing director. I was really involved, though, from a is this a good thing to do? And if we do so, how would we do it? And then, was heavily involved in all the due diligence, and making sure that we were looking at all the right elements and we were making all the right decisions.
So, of those elements, what did EBL bring that eBury didn't, that YBP brings? I mean, they're slightly different policies, and how are those going to meld together? Right.
So we bring some different access models. The nonlinear lending model, for example, is one. Our particular implementation of demand-driven acquisition is slightly different. There are some different ways in which we, some different workflows that we bring. There's different content. There's a great deal of overlap, but there's specialty content in each of the platforms that aren't that don't overlap. So it was really, we brought some of the back-end services, some workflow, and really, I think, too, the team, we bring in a level of expertise that's quite compatible. eBury as well, they have a real expertise, especially around the subscription model that they've been doing so long. And by combining the teams, we really round out the strengths of the two.
So do you see multiple models then being offered by ProQuest? I have a parochial concern. We at the University of Vermont have used EBL in collaboration with YBP. And with YBP, we've had a very long-standing, originally it was an approval plan, and now it's a shelf-ready plan. And we very much like both the billing approach that YBP bills us for the EBL materials, and they also deduplicate, so we don't have duplication. Do you see that continuing, being able to maintain those policies?
Absolutely, right. So, yes, and as we approach this isn't about choosing one model over the other or consolidating. It really is about, it's about choice. It's about offering the most choice of content, the best choices in access models. And when you're selling a product that has limited choice, you have to say these are the best things because this is what you're selling. When you have this wide stable of access models and content, then it becomes about consulting. It becomes about really understanding the needs of libraries and tailoring a solution, utilizing the right options. So so our what we hope to gain and what we are intending to gain out of this is to actually support more choices. Similarly, with the workflows that we've established with YBP, they're very important. We understand how important they are. And this isn't about becoming a self-contained unit within ProQuest. This is about integrating in all the ways and all the places that libraries are managing their acquisitions, are managing their workflows, are managing their collections. So it really is about, and yes, definitely, we'll continue to support.
Yes. About, you say that, eBury and EBL have some unique titles. Are there special subject areas, or is it more different publishers for the two companies?
It tends to be more around different publishers. And in some cases, some publishers will prefer one access model over another. Right. In some cases, it was just really a matter of where we've gotten to with our acquisition policies, our acquisition programs, and some of it is kind of accidental. Well, it's not a perfect world. Sometimes content's meant to be delivered in one and the other it isn't, and yeah.
Neat.
How do you, obviously it sounds like you really don't feel like competitors anymore, and I was just wondering, how do you maintain the open communication that enables you to merge, feel compatible, and so on?
With eBury and EBL, right.
Between the two entities.
Yeah, good question. I think it helps that right at the top, Kevin and I have had a very collegial relationship over the years. Even though we were competitors, we tended to, share our experiences and think about problems together in ways that I think we were equally concerned about the industry we're working in, and the issues we're all facing. So that was a good start. And I think when you get that cooperation at the top, it helps set the stage or set the environment under which the rest of the team will work together. There's a very good cultural fit between these companies as well. Between eBury and EBL,
Can you elaborate a little bit on that? That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think we've come from similar backgrounds. We were both startups. We've been approaching similar problems. We've been approaching similar challenges, and we've just done it from slightly different points of view or slightly different places. But we've been working with ebooks over more than 10 years. Each we've been growing organically along the way. There was a real, I think, on both sides, a culture of innovation, a culture of creative problem solving, and just I think they're just sometimes cultures fit and sometimes they don't. And this just, it was pretty easy. It was actually easier than I had sort of anticipated.
I think your policies have influenced one another as well over the years.
Absolutely.
I'm curious, now that you're under the ProQuest umbrella, this idea of patron-driven model, I wonder if ProQuest is going to apply it beyond ebooks.
Well, certainly something that we're looking at and is we hear from libraries is of interest, and we even prior to ProQuest on the EBL side have always sort of had that on the radar, that we would extend this beyond just the book content. So certainly something that we're looking at and thinking about, and yeah. No press releases yet.
No. I was just wondering, because ProQuest brings such amount of content to, essentially, to you folks, that you can apply these models beyond. It's funny because ebooks are really the newer thing, but your models are very innovative, and that could be applied to the older material as well. And I look forward to seeing that happening. As an acquisitions librarian, the just-in-time is very attractive, and it's very much what's attractive, has always been attractive with ebooks and your policies.
Right. So,
yeah.
Yep. And one of the big, one of the primary tasks at hand is interoperability between our products, interoperability between our content, making this content more usable side by side, or the interplay between the content, and that's certainly something we're working on as very much as a priority.
Great.
We understand that the merger will take a total of 18 months, full merger. Could you still tell us what part of the process you're in right now, and what the final company will look like in terms of structure and so on, and if you're planning a new name, or you just fill us in on what's going on with all that?
Sure. So we've brought the teams together, and we've integrated the sales team, integrated the product teams. We have integrated our the management teams and the content teams. So that aspect of bringing the teams together is, we really are merged on that respect. We still have our individual platforms, which we're continuing to develop and maintain. So it's not the case of, now everything stops and we just work on this new combined platform. We're continuing to invest in the existing platforms. And we've staged out the development. So there will be, obviously, we're going to bring the platforms together onto a common platform. And some of that we'll be using some of EBL's tools and platform as a framework for the future product. So we'll be launching a new version of LibCentral, which is our admin and acquisition portal on EBL. And we're going to start beta testing with that at the end of this year.
Okay.
That will then become the framework for the new administration and acquisition portal for the combined product. With eBury, we're launching a new reader and some new patron tools.
The combined product, do you have a date when that'll actually be on the market?
It will be, we're aiming for the first quarter of 2015.
Okay. And is there can you give us a scoop on what the new name might be?
Nope.
Oh, no.
We're taking our time to make sure we're doing our research, making sure that whatever it is we decide resonates with our customers.
We'll be using beta sites to test the various aspects of it.
The platform itself,
Yeah, the
yes,
platform,
absolutely. Yeah. And we've been on the road. So we've had roadshows across Australia and New Zealand. We've had roadshows, customer forums. So we've gathered together EBL customers, eBury customers, joint customers, and we've spent lots of time talking through the plans, ideas, hearing from them what they like, what they don't like, what they want to make sure we continue to do, what they like to see changed. We've done that in Germany and the UK. We're doing some more across Europe, all across Australia and New Zealand. We've done a number of sessions here. So that process is is great. You don't often have the time to do that in the kind of intensity that we have been. We're gathering all this in and incorporating that as we make our plans.
One of the interesting things at this year's conference has been some talk about looking to the future for textbooks, especially in the digital world. I wonder if you're doing any thinking about different formats to replace academic textbooks, and if you can talk anything about that, talk to that at all.
Yeah, so yes, textbooks are very much on our radar. It's something we hear every session.
Right.
What about textbooks?
Right.
And it's it is an area that we are investigating. We do have some pilots coming up for serving textbooks within the library in Australia. This early 2014. And these are with proper textbooks, right? Not course adapted.
That's the first part of the question, right?
Yeah.
Is the traditional textbook replicating it in an fashion?
For the purpose of this experiment, yes. But then we're also looking at delivery of textbooks to end users as well. We're looking at the combination of both textbooks within the library setting, textbooks to end users. And we don't have any, exact plans I can share with you now, except to say that it is something we're really kind of circling around and figuring out, what is our role here and what can we bring to this
when we talk about affordability for college students is a very big topic, certainly around the country, certainly in my university, and any kind of work to make that easier, especially in the text materials, and thinking again of ProQuest and their large content collection. We could think there might be some possibilities for collaboration in that regard to come up with new models for supporting classes, let's call it.
Certainly, and their interaction with our research tools,
Yeah.
and what value we can bring to not just getting the content, but the actual research.
Discoverability.
Yeah, right. The actual research process around utilizing these textbooks.
It's very exciting.
As Albert mentioned earlier, EBL was kind of noted for innovation, for being innovative. And we were wondering, now that the company is, in a sense, I don't know, is it doubling or tripling in size? I mean, how it's going to get a bigger company. What strategies are you guys going to have to ensure that that innovation remains live in this new, bigger company?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, and I don't know that we have a strategy necessarily, except that it is certainly a value. It's a value I'm bringing to the group. It's something that is, for me, a priority in continuing to foster that kind of critical thinking. And I think it's important, and I tell this to the team, that we don't fall into the trap of thinking big, right? Just because we are big doesn't mean we think big. It's important to continue, really. Innovation is everybody's job to, we all have to contribute. And so, I'm trying to cultivate, I think it already exists within the eBury team anyway, but cultivate and continue to support a culture which, lets that kind of critical or creative problem solving, come out on top.
I guess one of the other things I was kind of interested in, and what would you say, or what do you say to folks who, you mentioned this is a big company, it's a bigger company, and you're occupying a big part of the ebook space. What do you say to folks who are concerned that this is going to cut back on the competition and have negative price impacts for libraries? Right.
Well, one of the things I say, and I think it's true, that we, as we've consolidated and others have consolidated, new players have entered the market. We have JSTOR, we have Muse, we have an increasing number of publishers who have their own platforms. I don't think there's ever been more choice in terms of, options for how you buy your ebooks and where you buy them. So I think that'll continue. I think, in some ways, us getting bigger opens the door for smaller companies to come in and
for another startup
do something different, fulfill a niche, a niche model or content supply, and nobody can be everything to everyone, and we're not going to try to be everything to everyone, but we are going to try to offer the right choices to our customers. So I totally understand the concern around, that the competition, but I would hope that, it seems to me to still be a very healthy market, and I think it'll continue, those choices will continue to expand.
As far as the ebook space goes, what about, is there a place for things like self-publishing, open access, and even more broadly, what do you see the ebook space looking like in 5 years?
Right, absolutely. Those are again a couple of the things that we're really sort of circling around and looking at what role we play in open access, what role we play in self-publishing, and the technology. I think there'll be again more choices or more ways that content is being made available, whether it's through stronger self-publishing channels, whether it's through increasing open access, these channels will evolve, I think, as they make sense. The technology's there to support it. So really, the forum is there to test out these different things, and if it's going to work, it'll stick.
Yeah, it's interesting that we started in this industry with ebooks, but the technology you've developed is really applicable beyond that. Think of streaming media, which has only in the last few years become practical. Well, why shouldn't streaming media be part of, what I'm saying really is that this is not necessarily ebooks, right? It's really the technology providing access to digital materials with different business models.
Right.
And I would think both ProQuest's content, but other people might be interested in coming to you with different formats, whether it's open access or other things. We just need the industry to accept that.
Yeah. So yes, we are the things we do or we aim to do is to facilitate that ease of access, facilitate the workflow, make things discoverable, make things easy to use, provide the research tools around it, whatever the content format is. So I think the next few years will be telling in terms of what happens with self-publishing, what happens with open access, what happens with some of these other ways of bringing content to the public.
Speaking even more broadly, we talked about the ebook space. In terms of just library collections, where do you see things going in the next 10 years? More than just obviously ebooks are going to be a big part of it, but what else, what other developments do you see? Is there a place for print, for example? I mean, what do you think?
Absolutely. There's, print. Print will continue to have a place. There will continue to be, in some cases, a preference for print. I think print will work better for some content over others. I don't, when we talk about E versus P, I don't think it's really a versus, it's an E and P. And just like different models serve different content better in E, different formats serve different contents better overall. We know libraries have challenges around space. We know they have challenges around budget. I think these two, the print and the E, really supplement each other. The E can make the print much more valuable by making it more discoverable or more scannable, and the print will always provide a more immersive reading experience.
Well, one of the things that came up, we were talking to Stephen Bell earlier, and we asked him how, because he presented this morning and talked about this notion of synchronicity and just running, happening upon things.
Yes, yeah.
And we actually asked him, and I wanted to ask you, how does that translate into the ebook space? How can people just happen upon ebooks like they do on the shelf in a library? Just, I didn't even know it was there, and there it is.
Right.
How does that happen in the ebook space?
Well, I mean, I think, one way it's happening, we're seeing it happen now with ebooks with demand-driven acquisition model, for example. And I just came from a session, ebooks down under, right? We had, there were a couple of Australian universities that we work with who've been doing demand-driven acquisition for 8 years now, or insane. And the number of titles they can expose to their users with a just-in-time delivery model behind it means that the students can put their eyes over a greater number of resources, right? So there's the serendipity of stumbling upon something that the library wouldn't have otherwise made available to them or discoverable to them. And the ability to microtransact means that the library can expose a greater things that they maybe couldn't otherwise afford in their core collection or their collection building environment, that they can through these other mechanisms. So that's one example of how that's happening.
So as you expand your formats, do you see your platform as a supplement to or complement to the current discovery engines? A lot of places have moved into these big discovery engines just to give that serendipity.
Mm-hmm.
But it almost sounds like, as you expand beyond simply ebooks, that might be what you're aiming towards with this innovative business model.
Right. So discovery and PDA or DDA are actually, they're perfect for one another because it's a wider breadth of content, and the ability to microtransact or to make things available just at that second. Right.
I think it's very exciting.
It is exciting, right? So in this session, I mean, there's some really fantastic stats, and both of the universities are spending 88 and 90% of their acquisition budgets electronically, right? We don't see that happening as frequently here in North America, but it's moving. We're sort of seeing this a little bit further ahead. But the kinds of the changes in behaviors and the different ways in which they're able to make this content available it's exciting. And the stats that are starting to flow from that now.
So you're seeing usage statistics that kind of support this kind of purchasing?
Right. So there was a statistic that of the books that were purchased in this way, 98 or 99% of these books continued to have usage post-purchase. We don't, we haven't seen these kinds of usage stats across pre-selected print content before.
Absolutely. The research shows about 40% of the approval plan models never get use.
Right.
Whereas with PDA, we know there's one user already because that's the person who's requesting it.
Right.
And statistics show that something that someone has requested has a much greater chance of being used again.
Right. So it's a combination of this. These books are more discoverable, so they're being found more often, and the other combination of what's being acquired is absolutely tied to what's needed, and there's some interesting statistics coming out of it. I think we still have so much to learn, but it's encouraging. Some of these things that we're saying are, can be worrying, but the stats that came out of this presentation were absolutely encouraging. That some of these things we're doing right.
That's encouraging.
Yeah.
As you said. I think what we normally end the interview with is what I kind of refer to as a trick question, but it's really not. So, but it's if you were sitting in Albert's chair or sitting in my chair, what question would you ask yourself?
Oh, that's a tough one. What question would I ask myself? I might just set this up to make it really easy.
What are your challenges?
Well, I think we're in a challenging environment as we're shifting. We're shifting. The print to e is shifting. You hear, when you hear libraries spending 90% of their budget on electronic resources, that's a big shift. And there's a disruption, right, with this shift. And if it were the case that we could just take this and flip it over, and there was no, change in behavior. Right. But we see hiccups through this transition. There's some disruption, and the biggest challenge is to understand what that means. When you're looking at short-term data and trying to understand what that means long-term, it's a challenge. It's something we have to really continue to pay attention to, and to we need to keep looking at what's happening in the immediate term, but we have to understand it in the context of the longer term. So we don't have that many years of experience with ebooks, but but it's growing, right? Now we have, both eBrary and us have been around about 12 years. So it's not an excuse to say we don't know. We have to really make sure we do know, and that we are taking the time to understand, both within our world, but as an industry as a whole. How is this impacting the libraries? How is this impacting publishers? We're a community, right? And we have an ecosystem here, and we all play our part in maintaining a healthy environment.
It really sounds like we all have a responsibility to gather the data and
Right.
share it, so
And
that
share
these
it.
kind of decisions can be made in the most effective and efficient way
Right.
for our users and for our budgets and for so on.
Right, and so that we're not looking at it just from within our
Right.
silo. We really have to understand how our behavior, what we're seeing with our
Mhm.
data impacts the environment as a whole. So that's a challenge. That's something, I don't think we can, if we couldn't hire enough data analysts, for as much as we really want to. So that the challenge is prioritizing
Right.
that, and and making sure we understand it. We don't jump to
Mhm.
conclusions.
Well, Kari, we really appreciate you taking the time to come over and talk to us. We've learned a lot. It's been a lot of fun. And again, I want to thank you for doing this. It's been great.
Great, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.